Politics don't stop for the holidays, especially in Missouri, where a major deadline is just days away in a push to put Republican gerrymandering up for a statewide vote. At issue, the President Trump-backed plan state lawmakers pushed through, breaking up the historically Democratic 5th Congressional District in Kansas City to give Republicans another seat in Congress. A group called People Not Politicians has until Thursday to submit nearly 107,000 signatures to let voters decide on the new map next year. And this hasn't been easy. Republican leaders are working to block their efforts on a number of fronts, including a push to invalidate more than 90,000 voter signatures the group collected.
We've continued. We've had over 1,400 volunteers that every time one of these misleading text messages goes out or, the state tries to delay a court decision, it just angers people and it angers our volunteers. And it also angers voters because they see what's going on.
A pivotal decision could come tomorrow on those signatures, one of several court cases playing out right now with just days to go. Let's discuss with our roundtable of journalists. Please welcome back Brian Ellison, host contributor with KCUR, and KMBC9 political reporter Michael Mahoney. Okay, not much time left here, so let's bring people up to speed on the fight over the 90,000 signatures. These are the signatures collected in the weeks right after the General Assembly passed the map in September.
They need basically just under 107,000 valid signatures. And what's in question here is the 90,000, Cody, that you mentioned that were collected right after the initiative petition process was approved by the legislature. The Secretary of State, Denny Hoskins, is raising questions about those. Now, the people that want this to happen say that they're going to turn in somewhere in the neighborhood of 200,000 signatures to avoid, to take care of duplications and that sort of thing. And they should do that probably Tuesday, maybe Wednesday, maybe on the deadline day of December the 11th, next Thursday.
A lot hinges on that, the decision on Monday, but yeah, if the numbers are as high as that, then it might not play a role.
Well, that's right. But of course, that's not the only case that we're talking about. The Secretary of State is challenging those signatures, but at the same time, Missouri's Attorney General, Catherine Hanaway, has filed a federal lawsuit that suggests that redistricting should not even be subject to votes of the people, that a referendum is not appropriate for this sort of case. The federal judge in that case says that that decision will be made this week as well, and that's in addition to all the other cases.
No time like the present, right? It should be noted, if this does go to a vote, if they have enough signatures, moves on, this would likely be on the November ballot, which would negate the whole push to try to change this before the midterms.
Maybe the November ballot. The state could elect to put it on the August ballot, which I think might be quite likely because the turnout in the August primary is lower than it is in the general election.
Yeah. And don't forget, Cody, there's also a challenge to the ballot summary language that the Secretary of State has proposed. That's going back and forth with a district court judge in Cole County right now. He gets 3 tries, and that's not been resolved yet. There's also been challenges as to whether mid-decade redistricting is even allowed. Those are playing out in a couple of different courts as well. So even though some decisions will be made this week, I don't think we will know how this is all going to shake out until sometime next spring.
And in addition to that, and that's a full plate for everybody in here, the Attorney General, Catherine Hanaway, has launched an investigation on whether or not the organizers of the petition drive have used illegal aliens or improper methods to gather these petition signatures. Right now, it is an investigation. It's not a lawsuit. The organizers of the petition process strongly deny that anything's wrong with their petition gathering process.
A lot of opposition, especially from the Republican establishment in Missouri. We've been watching this a while. Is there a fear among Republicans that the voters are going to shoot this down?
Well, there seems to be, or you wouldn't expect to see quite so much effort on the legal and the administrative front. I think one of the realities that we have heard is that many of the Republican legislators who voted for this, especially on the House side in Jefferson City, did not realize that this could go to a vote of the people. That actually came up much later in the process. And now that it is being faced with that they may have to answer to voters more directly who have now become more engaged in this redistricting map, a lot of them are very concerned about what this might mean for them come next November.
That might be a bit of a disingenuous genuine argument. I agree with you that that's what they're saying, but most constitutional amendments go before the voters, and to think that this one wouldn't would be whistling past the graveyard.
All right, we'll leave it there for now. Michael Mahoney, Brian Ellison, thank you so much. Count on KMBC9 News to keep a close eye on the impending court decisions as the petition deadline day draws near. We'll be watching every step of the way.